Welcome to the very first episode of Beyond Passwords by AuthX. I'm your host Anup, and today you are stepping into a world that's way bigger than passwords, cybersecurity, or any other tech jargon. Let me start with this. Every day, every single day, millions of people log into something, and every single day, someone is trying to break in. We are living in a time where identity is a new perimeter, convenience is a new expectation, and security just can't slow people down anymore. So, what do we do next? How do we build a world where logging in feels effortless, but security is more stronger than ever? That's exactly what Beyond Passwords is all about. In this show, I'll be talking to a few of the smartest minds, CXOs, innovators, and a lot of tech enthusiasts who are actually building the future of secure access. We'll unpack real stories, some big mistakes, bold ideas, and the tech that's quietly transforming how we work every single day. Whether you're in IT, healthcare, manufacturing, or you're just curious about why the world is moving away from passwords, this is the podcast for you, and you're going to love this. So sit back, plug in, and get ready because today we're going to kick off the first episode. Welcome to the episode one of Beyond Passwords. Today, we are diving into a topic that's shaping every modern workplace, from hospitals and manufacturing floors to hybrid workspaces across the world, the evolution of workstation security. For decades, logging into a workstation meant one thing, and that is typing in your username, typing in your password. Slow, static, and shared, and often forgotten. Today, the world moves too fast for that. Clinicians need instant access, frontline workers shift devices all the day, and compliance demands precision. And organizations today cannot afford any friction or any risk at the point of work. That is why in this episode, we are unpacking how workstation access can be transformed and has transformed from old school logins to tap and go workflows. Joining me are two experts who live and breathe workstation security. Wake them up at midnight and they'll still break it down to you flawlessly. Our first expert is Pritham Gowda from AuthX, who is the president of technology and co founder. He brings over 2 decades of experience building secure, scalable identity and access platforms. Preetham's focus has always been on eliminating passwords and reducing friction at the point of work. His mission is simple: make access faster, safer, and inusable for modern workplaces. Our second expert is Kevin Cross, who is the founder of Security Rep and heads the technology sales at KSI Keyboards. Kevin's professional journey encompasses a robust background in product development, marked by significant contributions in the evolution of KSI keyboard products, including their latest innovation, the KSI Presence Detection Log of Solutions. Kevin, Pritham, would you like to introduce yourself to your audience and just say hi?
Hi, Pritham Gowda. Nice to be here. Thanks for hosting us, Anup. Nice to meet you, Kevin.
Thank you, Pritham.
Thank you, Anup and Pritham. Nice to be here on this wonderful podcast to learn a little bit more about security, and thanks for the introduction. Yes, I've actually now been almost in this industry 3 decades, believe it or not, and so much has changed since I started really exploring security back in the 90s to what it is today, and look forward to doing this call here with you.
Thank you, Kevin. Well, I think let's just dive deep in. I think workstation security has suddenly become a hot topic, especially in the frontline and the high velocity environments like hospitals and factories. Why do you think that the urgency has spiked now? Pritham, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Yes, Anup. Yeah. So workstation security isn't just about locking screens anymore. It's about protecting the gateway to your entire organization. Over 80% of the breaches start with compromised credentials, not complex hacks. With AuthX adaptive authentication and real-time monitoring and endpoint access security, you're not just securing a device, you're safeguarding your business from the inside out. So it's becoming critical that how people access the systems, how do we make sure their identities are verified, how they're authenticated, from where, can we trust it or not before we give any access to any system data. So it's the workstation, and with people going remote and or hybrid and multiple ways to actually access the data from mobile phones to workstations to laptop, things has changed and is changing very fast. So the access to these systems has to keep pace with the technology changes that actually can be trusted. Kevin, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, Freedom. It's as I mentioned here to start off, security been in it such a long period of time, and what started off as keeping your dog's name as your password to where we are today. It's really has changed the issues surrounding it, what you're protecting. Going back decades, we probably didn't have much on there. Now our digital existence is all on how you access into the system, and we are all being faked now as we move into the new world of security. There's so many different ways that we are getting attacked, whether it's internal, external, and where we're actually doing it. So I think the urgency is really spiked here recently because of how fast things are moving and the fraud that's out there.
I agree.
Absolutely, Kevin. Thank you, Pritham, Kevin, for that. There's an interesting stat out there, studies today show around 43% rise in the account takeover incidents, especially in 2025. And that's something I think it's becoming big as, with the evolution of AI, with the evolution of workstation security, that becomes very important. Kevin, I'm just curious, as a young professional, on how did workstation access look like 10 to 15 years ago? I know you told that most of the people keep their dog's name or their pet's name as their password, right? But would love to hear how it was like 2 decades ago, a decade ago, and like where are we heading now?
Yeah, I think Anoop, it almost didn't exist, right? When it first came out, we didn't have the concerns and passwords. If the one thing they only gave you access into maybe the main system, and I just think the depth of the information being stored and how we gain access to it has been the biggest change, right? And it's forced us to have way too many passwords. What we went from having one password to, I'm sure if I even ask any of us today here on this call, we probably have 20, 30 passwords to various daily type things that we access. And I think that's what's changed. It went from just getting in to now what really can I see? What do I have access to? And you can only do that by taking something very simple and make it more complex to be secure.
Could not agree more, Kevin. There is an interesting quote. If a password is too strong, that means it has to be on a sticky note. And that's how difficult it is today. And Pritham, question to you, I think we are in that era of transition from passwords to passwordless. I think there's pass keys, there is badge tab, there is biometrics, mobile MFA, and how do you think the world is going from passwords to passwordless? Would love your thoughts here.
So, as the complexity and the security for the passwords increased, right? I think people came up with, okay, it's not just enough, right? As the threats also actually evolve with the technology. So as a threat evolved, and okay, let's actually get multi-factor in. And then there were different ways to do the multi-factors. Okay, we start under the mobile evolution. They said, okay, why don't we actually start sending like one-time passwords? So all this actually, as it evolves, right? I mean, there has been lot of variations of how people want to protect it, but at the end of the day, we still have passwords, right? So how can we actually do even if it's an MFA, can we do a passwordless MFA? Can we do a access systems where it's trusted with just being a passwordless way to get in, right? So passwords, for many reasons, it might still stay there in the codes, right? But on a day-to-day access, right, where actually people are logging in, logging out, I think it has to change, and it is changing. But at the same time, there is a lot, since there's biometrics, there's passkeys, and there is options like badge tabs, right? All these options, I think having that, each environment having that is a good thing in a way, right? But also you can't use it all. Having that as an option right, in different environments, and what is convenient for a particular set of users, the kind of trust it can bring in with each authentication matters. So we continue to see like many kinds of ways of like authenticating into a system evolving over a period of time, right? With the age of AI, we don't know what to look for, right? But I see like there is still going to be like the standards like FIDO has come and is trying to say, okay, this is the way to do it. But as things change, it can be very different in the future. But having something that can actually give you the options that can actually like help you transition from passwords to a passwordless, I think is key. I think we had to start adopting it, and this is the time.
Certainly, Preetham. I think adoption is the key, and time is up for all organizations to go passwordless. Personally, like 6 months back, I've started using passkeys, and it's been like a huge change for me. And like it's just so seamless. I did not worry about the OTPs or anything, and that's just really helpful. And Kevin, I think coming back to you, I think so. This is one of the problem is shared workstation and shared environments, especially in industries like healthcare, manufacturing. Right, the risk is more considering shared workstations and everything, and there is a lot of compliance frameworks, right, such as HIPAA, EPCS, and all of them. So, like, how do you think organizations should go about rethinking their identity today?
Yeah, Anoop, our journey started in healthcare at KSI, looking at how do we increase that security, but not take away from the workflow. And workflow is everything. If something's difficult, people will always naturally try to find a way around it. Our journey in healthcare was because of the shared workstation, nursing stations, medical carts in the hallways, and you had to maintain that speed. But the problem with most organizations when it came to identity and passwords were they were making the passwords so complex and changing so often. I mean, some places had policies to change every 30 days, and people were mistyping passwords in. So I think when you start talk about identity, and you have to really talk about that, if it's not easy and the workflow is going to be changed, people are going to fight it. And so I think the biggest thing when you talk about identity, which is required for those things like EPCS and HIPAA and these other requirements coming down the road, is you have to find a process that's going to make the people want to use it. And out of that, you'll get security.
Surely, Kevin. No doubt about that. Since we are talking about healthcare, Preetham is someone who has done a lot of passwordless deployments across organizations. We have done a lot of passwordless deployments across healthcare. I think clinicians often say, right, every second counts for them, right? And like they can't be busy with passwords and worrying about where they've kept their password, whether it's under their table, under a sticky note. So that's going to be a really challenge for them, and the whole focus for them should be patient care. So Preetham would love to understand like how do you solve this? How the modern solutions are actually solving this speed versus security dilemma, right?
Yeah.
And why are these shared environments very tough to secure? Would love to hear your thoughts here.
So I think in a hospital, like especially like for the clinicians, I think their primary focus is the patient, right? So definitely for them, every second counts, right? So they need to go from system to systems or room to room, and they're actually like going across systems, and that's where like the sales systems are there, and definitely like there's sensitive data about the patient, right? So the shared environment, that means like we need to make sure like people who have access to the data are logging in correctly, and we have to keep it frictionless, simple, secure. So being able to like manage that with solutions like AuthX, you'll be able to like go from system to system, like not take like, oh, I need to type if I need to type my complex password or wrong password, I have to retry. I mean, being able to passwordlessly authenticating into the system, swapping the sessions, not sharing passwords, right? It matters. So that the whole thing in the shared environment is about making sure there's accountability and auditability, and there's security built all around. And even when they walk away from the system, it's not that they have time to log off because they're in a hurry. And that's where like the presence detection solutions like KSI matters.
Absolutely. I think the one thing that I agree is that clinicians and in healthcare, people are always moving from system to system, and I think Kevin I think that's where I really like the presence detection solution. I mean, I think it's really game changing, and because badges are there everywhere in hospitals, but the problem is doctors, they just log in, or even clinicians, they just log in and they just go off because they are in a hurry most of the times in healthcare. It's a very fast paced environment. So like how do you think has this secure hardware evolved? Like, right, how is this more important and more critical even in a passwordless world?
Yeah, Anoop, I've got a personal, reason to wanting hardware and being hardware specific, but it's really difficult. If you look back at the critical elements of security, they come down to something you are, something you have, and something you know. And really, in order to achieve two of those criteria, you really have to have hardware in place, right? So it's not when it's something you are, it typically, of course, equates to biometrics. And so we have quite a few different types of biometrics that can be implemented, from finger to camera, et cetera. And so hardware is going to be a requirement. You can't get around it. And then when you talk about something you have, you actually made mention, and I think it has changed the scope for a lot of people, passkeys, right? But something, you have to have something, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a security token, something you have, something you're going to be interfacing. Well, that's hardware. And somehow that hardware has to talk to other hardware. So you really can't have, in my opinion, a secure solution if you don't implement hardware. And certainly down in future podcasts, we'll talk further about Presence Lock, the technology that KSI that we've developed. But Presence Lock is a hardware-based technology that monitors the desktop for a person. And I think, that fast-paced world, and it's not just healthcare. You talk almost every vertical industry in the world, people will forget to lock their systems. And so, we've implemented some neat things when it comes to hardware. And I just don't think you can have security without the word hardware.
That is so true, Kevin. Totally agree on that. I think the password resets are a nightmare, because I think before I started working at AuthX, I think I was requesting a password reset almost every month, because it's tough to remember passwords and keep them changing. It's just a horror story. And I think the interesting journey, like, let's move from hardware to software with them. How do you think AuthX has added this more intelligence, in terms of the adaptive MFA, the phishing resistant MFA, and more dynamic workflows, which are compatible across devices and OS platforms? Like, how has this evolution been? And would love to hear more from you.
With AuthX, I mean, we have adapted to all possible hardware that actually works with standards, right? So whether it's the pass keys, the smart keys, right? I mean, being able to work with the biometric systems out there, right? So well, that happens. I think still that's one part of what a user does at a workstation, right? It's about how should we allow a person in or not, when to ask for MFA, right, or not, or we should be trusted authentication at a certain point of time. That's where the adaptive authentication mechanisms really play a role. And on top of it, then actually in a regular organization with number of applications that people are using keeps growing day by day. And imagine you have to log into each of the systems one by one. That's a nightmare. This is where actually we need to be having a seamless single sign-on across the systems, where it's a federated login that happens. And actually not for every application, how do we actually make sure you're not clicking a button to single sign-on, or you're actually wasting time actually getting into these applications? That's where the workflow automations come into place, right? And a doctor comes and taps a badge, actually it logs into the system and actually it opens the application for them, right? And also being able to in the virtualized environments and in the more sophisticated environments, like when doctors move from a, let's say, like from the patient's bed to his desk, like being able to see the same patient information where he actually left off at the patient's bed, being able to carry those sessions across. It's not just about authentication. It's about actually making that experience for the user, making them more productive, and also matters. I think this is where like the combinations of the hardware, software, virtualization, and other technologies, I think like orchestrated well, like makes that user experience better, and that's where the organizations also benefit from.
Certainly, Preetham. I think we have a lot to talk about in terms of like how the behavioral signals, how AI and the zero trust models today are reshaping our workstation authentication. But I think before that, Kevin, I think this is one story that I heard from you when we were on a call with Fido. Like how one of a CXO leader left their laptop open. I think the audience would love to hear that story. Over to you, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I think this story is one that's repeated more than just the one that I told you about, because, if you are a C-level employee in a company, hospital, or whatever it might be, financial bank, you're obviously having access to stuff that is very private, very, very important to the organization. And the story that I told you about was when they had a meeting, and in one of the conference rooms, and the CEO actually accessed some information through his account. And that meeting happens, everyone leaves, and he leaves, walks out, forgets about locking that workstation, which is what we do with presence lock. But and someone did come in, obviously internal, saw that access was there, and went in and got and obtained some very sensitive documents. It's one of these things that I think that we just don't think about. On our daily lives, we leave doors open, garage doors open. In our professional lives, leaving those open could collapse a company. It's just that simple. And in this case, it was found out quick enough. But the point was, they found out what a huge hole they had, something that needed to be solved with something more than just a timeout.
Absolutely, Kevin. I think that's something we all forget. Like, we are very cognizant when we are at home, right? To close the doors and everything. But we have to understand that like a workstation is like a door in our professional lives. And I think, Pritam, coming that to you, I think you have seen a lot of password breaches, a lot of stuffs, and as we have seen like clients wanting to get their passwordless and getting erupted to that. Today I think there are more than 24 billion passwords across the dark web. So would love to hear your stories around how you have pivoted clients from password to passwordless.
Yeah, I think we have I think a lot of stories where actually like people come with different problems with us, right? I mean, I'll take an example of a simple use case actually like we actually had to solve for one of the customers, right? So they had this application which has to be like running on a system no matter what, right? Like it's an ICU scenario, right? But as nurses or clinicians actually work around, they were actually like they would actually switch to an application. They will not keep keep the application on so they can actually watch, right? So that's where actually like they wanted to solve that, and but also make sure that applications are always running, and they want to know like if someone tests the system. I mean, where actually like we said, okay, why don't we actually make sure there's a screen overlay on it, so like they can't change anything, but they have to authenticate before they log in, right? Okay, how do they, and of course they're in a hurry, right? I mean, it has to be frictionless. That's where like we implemented a batch tab solution, passwordless access. We have audit trail of who logged in, so there's accountability, right? And making sure that application is always stays on top, right? So whatever is being viewed in the ICU. So simple use cases like that, I think, can save lives, save time, and secures the systems also.
Absolutely. I think there's an interesting stat from IBM, which says that the average database costs around 4.5 million globally, And and the weirdest thing is the credentials theft is one of the main reason at the center of it. So I think that's very important, in terms of how organizations will be heading, the future in terms of heading into 2026. I think would love to hear in this perspective from both of you. I think Kevin, back to you. Like, what do you think would be the top priority for organizations in 2026? There is AI, and there is zero trust adoption, and multi OS environments and all of that happening. So would love to hear more from you on that.
Yeah, for sure, Noob. Look, if you're not doing something now, you're I don't understand how you can wait. Really, honestly, you have to do something, and because these different ways of people getting in, whether it's internally, externally, it's so easy. Even being a security expert, I've almost hit those links. I always question myself. And it's not just the links; it's different approaches. I think if people really knew how insecure their personal world is and even their professional world, they would be doing it yesterday. They'd be calling and doing something. And my only advice is that you do something in the future and do it now, because it will be something that you won't be able to recover from very easily. You talked about the dollars. If you have issues, the money that's spent fixing is so much easier spent preparing. And I just believe that people need to prepare. They need to have personal plans, and it falls true in both your personal and your professional lives. It's very easy to get a pass key, right? It's very easy to do these things. You just have to take the effort.
Totally agree with you on this, Kevin. I mean, we have all the options, and they're so easy to integrate, whether it is passkeys, biometrics, badge tap, or any of the passwordless authentication options. But we as individuals tend to ignore them. And like they say, if the key is stolen, does not matter how strong the key is, because it is going to open the doors. Would also love to hear, like, what would be your suggestion for organizations going from passwords to passwordless?
I think it's time is now. I think the people have to start planning about how do they actually like transition to better technologies, whether it's a smaller or an enterprise. I think they need to start bringing in like passwordless solutions that actually people can adopt, because passwords are not going to get eliminated in a day. It's going to take time. It takes behavior change, right? So start implementing now. Adopt the right systems, implement zero trust, right? So because even a small company who is actually a supplier to an huge enterprise, a compromise on a small supplier can cause repercussions for the whole enterprise. So it's about securing the whole supply chain, whether small, big, medium. I think every organizations had to start thinking about it, even individually also, right? I mean, adopt passkeys wherever you can. It's opted for, right? I think that behavior of using passwords has to change fundamentally for everyone. And at the same time, like the organizations and the service providers has to start providing those options so people can adopt. I think the time is now. With the AI, I think the hackers are no more going to be humans, right? I think it will be AI agents trying to hack into things. So you have to get better at your security, right? I mean, personally as well as enterprise-wide.
Absolutely, absolutely, Pritham. I think if there's one takeaway, I think passwordless is basically taking away the keys so that you exactly know who it is who is coming in. So I think that's the future. And I think we could go about this topic all day, but I think we have to wrap it up. But I think if there's one takeaway from today's conversation for our audience, I think it would be this: workstation security is no longer just an IT problem. It's a business problem, it's a safety problem, and a productivity problem. The way we work, especially after the pandemic, has changed faster than the way we secure access today. And I don't think passwords have that ability to keep up. So whether it's hospitals where second saves lives, or even factories where every single delay costs money, the future is a security that's invisible, intelligent, and instant. Zero trust, passkey adoption, presence detection, passwordless, I think they aren't buzzwords anymore. I think they are the stakes at the table today. Because at the end of the day, I feel security should empower people to do their best work and not slow them down in any way. So, Preetham, Kevin, thanks for joining in today's podcast. And I think this is just the beginning. I would love the audience to stay tuned for more conversations. Thank you. Preetham, Kevin,
Thank
any
you.
final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think
No,
you
go ahead.
summed it all well, Anup. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you, and look forward to the next podcast. And I know we'll be sharing a lot of, and hopefully solving a lot of your concerns.
Absolutely, Kevin. Absolutely, Preetham. Thank you for joining. It's a very insightful conversation. Thank you for our audience for tuning in.